Hello, this is Ikram of King Sukuroi, The Evolution of I. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about improving our communication techniques. Now, have you ever found yourself in a situation where you're maybe in an interview, a review, in a negotiation, or presenting to an individual or to a small group, and then you find that maybe the communication style that you're doing isn't really congruent with those you're speaking to, or maybe your style of communicating isn't really congruent or doesn't match the ethos of the individual you're speaking to. And had it been, maybe your chances of elevating or being more successful in that position would have been far greater. Now, what I'm going to do today, very briefly, is overview on how a DISC assessment works, which is understanding how personality traits work. And by understanding each of the traits, we can adapt our ethos, our personality style, and our communication style to become more congruent with the individual we're speaking to. How we do this is by identifying first each of the traits. Now, over the series of the next few videos, I'm going to talk in depth about each of these traits, but to give you a brief overview of how the DISC assessment works is you ask yourself a few questions to find out where you fall within this graph. So over in my baby board just behind me, I'm going to draw very quickly something you can draw on a piece of paper or in your mind. This is very simple, to understand how personality traits work and which one you fall into. Now, you could go into the Myers-Briggs and try to understand the 16 traits, or this is a lot simpler and it's easier to understand and it's easier to learn. What you'll do is you'll have a board, and on the outside you'll have an O and an I, and then you will have a T and then a P. All this really means is that someone who is outgoing, someone who is introverted, someone who is task orientated, and someone who is people orientated. Now think of yourself in a situation where it's brand new and you've walked into a room and you have met quite a few individuals, you don't know any of them. Are you going to be the individual who goes in and introduces themselves to everybody, or are you going to be quite reserved when you walk in? So then that discovers whether you are on the top part of the scale or the bottom part of the scale. Bottom or top, neither of which is bad, neither of which is good. These are all traits and we are all unique and we all play a part in a bigger circle. Now ask yourself, are you task orientated or people orientated? When there is a task at hand, are you someone who concentrates on getting the job done? Or are you someone who wants to socialize a little bit, talk a little bit, get to know the people you're working with? Now, if you are indeed outgoing and you are, let's say, people orientated and you enjoy conversations and you enjoy meeting people, then what you might find is that you're on this part of the scale. And if you are here, you fall within the I category. If you are task orientated and outgoing, you'll find yourself here, which is the D category. If you are introverted and you're task orientated, you'll find yourself here and you will be C. And if you are introverted and people orientated, you'll find yourself here, which is an S. Now what the DISC assessment means is that if you're outgoing and task orientated, you're quite determined, you're driven, you are directive. If you are outgoing and people orientated, you are an I, you are inspiring, you are invigorating, you are the one who initiates, gets the ball rolling. If you are introverted and task orientated, you are C, so you're complex. And if you are introverted and you are people orientated, you're quite sensitive. Now why this is important is, myself, I fall upon the two categories at the top, because you'll dominate one and you'll subdominate another, and you'll be the opposite of the other. And why this is important is, this individual, if you put names of characters to give you a better understanding of each of these traits, is someone who's outgoing and task orientated, someone who's quite leadership driven, say someone like Alan Sugar. So you've got Alan Sugar up on this. Then someone on the other scale who's also outgoing but very people orientated and very chatty, very energetic. Let's go with Alan Carr. You might have someone who is introverted, not necessarily shy but very complex, likes facts and figures, likes to know how things work. Someone like Mark Zuckerberg. And then we have finally someone who's quite sensitive, in terms of they're quite people orientated, they're quite nurturing. An individual like this would be someone like David Attenborough, who's very much into nature. Now what you might find is Alan Sugar and David Attenborough maybe not work very well together. One is very driven, one is quite laid back. Alan Carr and Alan Sugar probably won't get along because one yabbers quite a lot and the other wants to get stuff done. Mark Zuckerberg probably won't want to work with Alan Carr, nor would he want to work with David Attenborough because he wants to get stuff done. He doesn't want to be behind. These are the early adopters and these are the late bloomers. So what you find is that these two individuals work very well together and these individuals work very well together. These two, however, don't, and these two, however, don't. Now, why this is very important is if you're going to an interview or a presentation, or you're having a review, or you're going to go pitch an idea, and the individual of which you're going to pitch to, and you can identify if this individual is quite pragmatic, or if they're quite extroverted, or if they're quite amiable, or if they're quite analytical. You can adapt your ethos in order to accommodate for their communication style by adapting to their personality, because people like themselves. And when you understand how this works, you have a better chance of being more successful when you're communicating with this individual. Now, over the next few videos, I'm going to emphasize and explain and elaborate a lot more into each of the traits, so we have a strong understanding of the strengths and weaknesses of a pragmatic or a D, of someone who's an extrovert, the I. There goes my baby board. Somebody who's introverted and analytical, someone who's introverted and sensitive. And hopefully, once we've understood this, we can elevate our understanding of how people work, and then we could also elevate our communication style to adapt more so. This is a series that's going to lead on to also developing relationships socially, and more so within the dating game, something I'm sure a lot of you would find interesting. This is Ikram of King Sukuroi, The Evolution of I, the evolution of us all. Journey well, may life always be in your favour.